Next we have Jan Anderson. She's been a local teacher since 1974. She's the daughter of an Iwo Jima veteran. If any of you all want to read a humbling book, read Flags of Our Fathers, you'll get a better understanding for what that really means. She has 3 sons in the Marine Corps. Jan Anderson.
Everyone is well aware that education in America today is well below what it used to be, what it should be, yet those in charge of the national government refuse to lay the blame of where the problem is at the correct feet. It's at their own. Here's my question to them. If our people were smart enough and courageous enough to stand up to the greatest military might in the world in 1776 and win when no one else thought we could, if our people were smart enough through self-education and homeschoolings of their mamas and daddies in the 1600s and 1700s and 1800s to run the best nation in the world ever, if our people were bold enough and strong enough and smart enough to settle unmapped lands and build communities with law and order, if our people were smart enough to build railroads, huge ships, tall buildings, if our people were smart enough to invent the telephone, the telegraph, the television, to harness nuclear energy to light the world with electricity through the light bulb, if our people were smart enough to force out a Department of Education in 1868 that Andrew Johnson agreed to, and fears that the department would exercise too much control over the local schools, if we were smart enough to be the winning force in World War I and World War II, to land a man on the moon first, and if we didn't have the education in our country going downhill until after the Department of Education was approved in 1979 under Jimmy Carter, then why is anyone surprised that this behemoth agency, number one, puts further demands on local schools to meet absurd goals that defeat the purpose of education, and then force communities to send more and more of their money to its insatiable appetite, because you understand that out of every dollar, 19 cents of it goes just to fund the Department of Education to tell us what we ought to do. That is not correct if you understand child development and how the brain works, okay? These people literally do it incorrectly, and we spend a fifth of our money for it. And the Department of Education has to ensure that most schools can never reach the goal, so they can take over and change America to their way of thinking. So how do they want us to change? Actually, the progressives said it to us in teachers' colleges across the nation clear back in the early 1970s. I know, because I was there, and they said it to me. Number one, parents poison the minds of their children with their Christian values of morality. I paid to hear that crap. Okay? Number two, we needed to alienate the children from their parents. We were taught this in college in the early 1970s. How much more time has passed, and how deeper is it today? Three, we were to teach them the end justifies the means morality, a shifty morality that enables the elitist, which was supposed to be me and other teachers to bring in a new world order. They're talking about this in the 1970s, people, where our minds would rule the world with other like-minded elite from around the world. This is not new stuff. And then while those of us in state schools would obviously never be the cream of the crop for the real world movers and shakers, we could be part of it if we would go along with this obviously great idea. And anyone with a thinking mind that was not corrupted by the Bible would see the beauty and importance of this plan according to the social justice teachers back in the 1970s. This is not new. So, here's what's been happening. In the curriculum, we've been teaching humanism. This was taught in the schools, in the government, and it was taught in our seminaries. Therefore, everyone can improve if they just try, because there is no God and we worship the mind. And that's what's going on. Those who can't do well, we're going to take care of. Not them. Not them try to help themselves. Not teach them how to fish. so that they can take care of themselves. We're going to enable them to not be able to take care of themselves, so they're beholden to the government, so we can keep our elitist jobs. The churches aren't supposed to do it like it used to be when we had people who were having problems. The government should do it, but see, the government's money is our money, so they keep taking our money so they can make sure that we continue to be their servants instead of them serving us. They have used textbooks to revise history, eliminating the importance of Christianity. Did you know that the British were the most afraid of the Black Regiment? What was the Black Regiment? That was the preachers. The preachers were the ones who started the American Revolution by what they brought in and by telling the people what the rights were. Because the Constitution was based on multiple verses out of the Bible. And all of the ideas of the Constitution were from the Bible. And in English literature, more and more dark stories are being taught instead of uplifting moral stories that we grew up with in the 40s and 50s and 60s. The discipline in our schools is breaking down more and more as we try to build up their self-esteem. I've got kids, I'm a special education teacher. I've got students with an IQ of 60 who think they're going to be a scientist. Excuse me? You're not even going to be able to get a high school diploma. But everybody's been oh, that's wonderful, sweetie. Isn't that not? What? He doesn't think he should have to do any work because everybody's just been handing him stuff all the way through. So this entitlement stuff is all through the school system, and our kids are infected with this whole idea. They're entitled to a high school diploma. What do you mean I'm not going to get just passed on? Okay, we've got a real crisis on our hands. The testing that we think, well, we're going to find out what's wrong with all these bad teachers. It's designed to watch teachers and schools fail and our kids fail. They change what's required so you can't hit a moving target. There's no way that you can do this. That's what it's planned to do. They increase the knowledge load beyond the ability of that age development of the brain. In other words, if you try to teach this higher level mathematical thinking at, say, you've already taught it, normally teach it in high school, we now got it down, we're now down to 7th grade for some of these concepts. Kids can't get it. Kids are going to fail. It's going to be the teacher's fault and the school's fault, and therefore the federal government can come in and take over our schools, and it's going to be run exactly like they say. That's what's going on. That's what this testing's about. It's not about improving schools. I'm going to tell you a story about one of the best teachers that I saw was up there at Southwestern, Pat Stoner. She was awesome. She could teach a group of kids that were average, maybe a little above average, some that weren't so good, and she could get them going and get their minds functioning just like that. One of the best teachers I ever saw. And she retired early. And I said, Pat, why in the world did you retire? She said, I couldn't take it anymore. She said, I'm no longer able to teach the way I know kids need to learn. And I can't watch them fail anymore. Now that's pitiful. That's what's going on. So, education's in high crisis. Everyone must educate their own children with good values. This is critical. 2, teach them the truth about our country's history. Peter Marshall has some excellent books out. He was here in Madison back in 1995. I've got the books. Give me a call if you need to know where to get them. But he's on the internet. But these books cite original sources that tell the real truth about our country. And it is one of the most inspiring books I've ever read. And he's got a children's version of it too, so you can teach your children. Number